Number 12. Hot dog. It's no secret that there are some extremely bizarre people out there with some extremely bizarre fetishes. Don't worry, this video is PG. Although after hearing this, you may never eat hot dogs again. A beautiful young girl named Suki was left heartbroken. You see, Suki really enjoyed when people threw up on her. Yeah, she likes vomit all over her body. She is an emetophiliac, or a person who has an overwhelming desire to be puked on. This is pretty gross, but hey, whatever floats her boat. This did not, however, float her boyfriend's boat, and he dumped her after he found out what kind of freaky stuff she was into. With her broken heart, Suki decides she needs to fulfill her weird craving and goes to a hot dog eating competition. It's quite common for people to throw up after participating in things like this. Who knew? So her plan was to have the winner vomit on her after the competition. A competitor named Hiro Tanaka wins the hot dog eating contest, and Suki sees he is about to hurl. She goes backstage to wait for him, stripping down to her Victoria's Secret lingerie to make the whole thing a little more sexy. Suki presents herself to him, but Tanaka, obviously not in the mood, tries to get away. This is when things get even crazier. Suki grabs him and jams her fingers down his throat. Hiro violently vomits chunks of undigested hot dogs all over her. She even manages to get some of his puke down her throat. Hiro is so disgusted, and we know by now you are too. He flees in horror, but in an even crazier twist, Suki starts to choke on the vomit chunks. She can't talk or breathe. No one is around, and she ends up falling to the floor and dies in a puddle of her own beloved vomit. Number 11. Killer beard. People have been sporting facial hair for thousands of years. Beards, mustaches, goatees, the totally rad and beloved sideburns, you name it. Facial hair has always been popular. Sometimes having so much hair on your face can cause occasional problems, like getting food stuck in your stash or it just starting to get itchy. But it's never usually anything too serious. Sadly though, one man had his own beard turn against him. Hans Steininger was a pretty big deal during his time period. In the 16th century, he was the mayor of his small town, Braunau am Inn, located in Austria and Germany. Although the kind of man he actually was, or how he served his public as a leader, has been forgotten, he still became a bit of a local legend after his death. Hans was remembered for having a beard nearly 5 feet or just about 1.5 meters long. Now that's pretty long. Despite being such an impressive man, his death was anything but. On September 28, 1567, a fire broke out in the town. Everyone was running around and freaking out. Usually Steininger wore his beard tied up and out of the way, but the day of the fire his beard was loose. It was flowing in the wind as he ran in fear. But while he was trying to escape, he accidentally stepped on his beard, tripped down his stairs, and broke his neck. But here's an interesting fact. The town of Braunau am Inn kept the mayor's beard. It's been preserved and on display for hundreds of years since that fateful day. It's quite the artifact. So if you ever find yourself between Austria and Germany and fancy seeing one of the most impressive beards in history, go check it out. Number 10. Gas drank. In West Glacier, Montana on May 19, 2002, a bank robber named Cisco was on the run from the coppers and decided to hide out in the wilderness. He had more than enough money to make himself a new meth lab. So what does he do? He celebrates by knocking back a few drinks. Unfortunately, he accidentally smashes his last bottle of bourbon on a rock, which really ticked him off. Does he sound like a great guy? Wanting to get drunk but having no booze left, and not willing to get caught by authorities by setting foot in a bar or liquor store, he decides to siphon gasoline from his motorcycle, thinking he can drink it because it contains ethanol, which is a form of alcohol found in almost all forms of booze. But it's disgusting and Cisco can't keep it down. He vomits it back up into his campfire, which then roars when the alcohol hits it, and he is soon engulfed in flames. He's running around frantically, trying to put out the fire, but to no avail. The not-so-clever criminal is burnt to a crisp. After all, gasoline doesn't just contain ethanol. Number 9. Death by Gecko. David Dole was known as a lovable and goofy guy. The 34-year-old was a wonderful dad to 3 kids, and he never ever backed down from a challenge. At a Christmas party with family and friends, David's daring attitude would be the death of him. A friend dared David to do something extremely weird, and something any normal person would not do. He dared David to eat a gecko. Yes, a living gecko lizard like in the Gecko commercials. So, he did. It's not exactly clear what the terms of the challenge were, like whether or not he had to eat the gecko whole or what David did not expect was to be rushed to his local hospital just 2 days after eating the gecko. He had incredibly intense pain throughout his entire body. At first, David just thought he was getting sick or was possibly a bit hungover, but after being brought to the hospital, he suffered in agony there for 10 whole days before finally dying. It was one of the worst ways to die. Doctors said that his testicles had swollen to the size of grapefruits and had fluid leaking out of them. Yikes! And this all happened because of an accumulation of fluids built up inside his stomach cavity. He then went into surgery, but died on the table, basically from internal rotting. There was never an official cause of death, and it's unclear exactly how he died, though he was diagnosed with salmonella poisoning. Did he really think he could just eat a gecko and not have consequences? Do you think this is what caused the complications that led to his death? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 8. Vigilante. Vigilante was tired of petty crimes being committed every day, so he decided to do something about it. He became a superhero. Look out, bad guys, here comes Red Justice. Andy, wearing a cape and equipped with a cattle prod, reprimands these so-called criminals for jaywalking, littering, and other minor crimes. Then, one day, Andy finds a group of people smoking marijuana on the rooftop of a warehouse. He shocks one of the smokers with a cattle prod, but retreats when the others go after him. He ends up dropping his cattle prod on the roof and then trips on his cape, but instead of flying, he falls over the edge, fracturing his skull and chest as he splats on the cement. Number 7. Peeing on a shark. On a beach in Brazil, a man was killed when he got the, quote, wise idea to pee on a shark. Does that sound wise to you? Marcelo Roca Santos was 51 years old. One day, he was drinking with his friends, having fun, when he realized that he needed to go to the bathroom. He drank too much and couldn't hold it. So Marcello waded out in the water, relieved himself, and realized with great horror that he was literally peeing on an 8.5-foot tiger shark. The shark really didn't appreciate the golden shower and attacked. I mean, think about it from the shark's point of view. He was just minding his business, checking out the fish, and then all of a sudden the water around him got really warm. Gross! You'd be mad about that too. Marcello was pulled underwater, and seconds later, the blue water started turning a crimson red. His friends jumped in and pulled him back to shore, but it was too late. He was bleeding out. He had lost part of his arm, a piece of his leg was missing. They rushed him to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead almost immediately. I bet this story will make you think twice about peeing in the ocean. Number 6. Fishing revenge. Randall was not the most easygoing guy. He got frustrated very easily, and quite often even while at his job as an electrician. So his friends suggested he take up fishing. They thought it would really do him some good and might even calm his easily agitated nerves and anger. One day, Randall takes his friend's advice and goes to the lake. It wasn't really working out, though, because he couldn't catch anything, and he could feel his mood starting to boil. In an intense and insane fit of rage, he strings a 12,000-volt electrical wire into the lake in order to kill the fish. All the while he's doing this, he's got his head thrown back, laughing like an evil maniac, and calling up to the sky to God, asking if this is what he wanted. He's also screaming, "I'm not a fisherman, I'm an electrician." Can you picture how nuts that must look? Well, things got even crazier. Randall accidentally steps barefoot off the wooden boat seat onto the metal boat floor, where he was electrocuted and was killed pretty much instantly. Number 5. Yum! Cockroaches. We have another food competition on the list, and yes, this one is every bit as disgusting as the first one. The contest was being held at a local pet store in Deerfield Beach, Florida. There were about 30 contestants running. What was the grand prize, you ask? A python. What were they eating? Live cockroaches. I mean, of course, who wouldn't want to shovel a bunch of live cockroaches in their mouth for a pet snake? To win, you had to eat the most cockroaches out of everyone else. And one man named Edward Archibald was set on winning the snake for one of his good buddies. So he took on the challenge, thinking it would just be some harmless fun. But after shoving dozens and dozens of the crawling insects into his mouth, Edward began to choke. Insect parts were blocking oxygen from being able to enter his lungs, and eventually he died due to asphyxiation and the amount of cockroaches in his body. The owner of the pet shop and everyone who witnessed Edward's death were shocked and horrified. Even though he died, Edward had signed a disclaimer before participating in the competition, so no blame fell on the shop. Number 4. Musical mistakes. Joey was a guitar player who wanted to become a famous musician. He was alright, but needed more practice and better equipment. The problem, though, was he didn't have a lot of money. He was pretty much broke. He didn't even have enough to cover his bills that month. He was listening to a segment of his recording when suddenly the landlord knocked on his door asking if he had rent money. Joey panicked and hid in his Murphy bed. When the landlord uses his keys to come in, Joey stays in the bed and waits. However, when the landlord leaves, Joey's Murphy bed is stuck and he can't get out. To make things worse, Joey had soundproofed his room with cheap egg cartons. No one could hear his muffled cries for help, and Joey ended up suffocating to death. Number 3. Crashing cows. It's raining cows. Hallelujah, it's raining cows. Oh yeah. Okay, sorry, anyways. If you could choose the way you die, most people would choose to die in their sleep. Sounds pretty peaceful. But what if it wasn't so peaceful? A man named João Maria de Souza was sound asleep one night at his home in Brazil when out of nowhere a cow fell 8 feet, or just shy of 2.5 meters, through his bedroom roof and crushed him. Yeah, this actually happened. João's wife took him to the hospital to try and fix him up, but he ended up bleeding out due to the enormous 3,000 pound, or just about 1,300 kilogram bovine that landed on him. But how in the world did this happen? Well, apparently the animal had recently escaped from a nearby farm. João's house was right against a hill, so the cow must have been on the hill and couldn't tell where the hill ended and the roof started. His family was absolutely devastated. No one could have possibly seen this coming. The owner of the cow has yet to be discovered, but it's very possible that, if caught, he could go to court because of the death the tricky cow caused. Always be sure to tell the people in your life you love them, because you never know, they might be hit by a falling farm animal. Number 2. Money hags. This next listing is definitely one of the dumbest. A young and attractive woman from California named Brandy recently married an old geezer millionaire. Turns out she only loved him for his money. Who would have thought? Brandy wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but she wasn't the dullest either. The gold digger had been secretly skimming money out of her rich husband's accounts because he refused to raise her allowance due to the economy. Brandy would often hide inside her high-security vanity room to spend time with the money. I mean, we've all dreamed about swimming in money or throwing it up in the air like confetti, right? So one night, while she was skimming and messing around with her husband's money, an earthquake hits and shakes the room. The earthquake caused the heavy bags of money to fall and knock Brandy out, and then, with all the bags on top of her and no air to breathe, she suffocated to death. Hey, it's better than being crushed by a cow, right? Number 1. Boiling water. A young girl has died after drinking boiling water. Why did she do this? Well, she did it after watching someone on YouTube do it for a dare. Oh, the horrors of the internet. The dare was to drink boiling water out of a straw, so the little girl did it. But within minutes, she was having difficulty breathing and fell unconscious and needed to be rushed to the nearest hospital. 8-year-old Kiari Pope suffered burns to her mouth and throat, which led to the trouble breathing. She was rushed into emergency surgery for a tracheotomy, and this left her with chronic respiratory problems. She couldn't even talk, and even though she seemed to be getting better after a while, later she had difficulty breathing again, became unresponsive, and died after paramedics spent 40 minutes trying to resuscitate her. This is definitely a tragedy, and a big reason parents should monitor what their kids watch online. Thanks for watching. Which one of these listings do you think was the absolute dumbest way to die? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these. See you next time on the Bad Badger.